I have become deaf, so I speak very loud. Do you think if I...
We're deaf too.
Un grand merci, Laurent. Merci aussi, Christina, pour l'introduction. I count it a real privilege to have been asked to share at the 40th of CCJC. First of all, a congratulations. Congratulations. About 40 years, it's worth celebrating. Now, allow me to make a personal link with the beginning of CCJC. It's interesting because I began also in correction in 1972. And I remember after a few months, as the chaplain at Archambault, the head of chaplaincy asked me if I would become the assistant regional chaplain, like in Quebec, being a Protestant chaplain, if I would become the assistant regional chaplain. And I felt quite honored. I realized, gee, I had just been there a few months. But then I realized that David McCord, who was the full-time chaplain and had been the associate regional chaplain, had decided to create CCJC and was moving out. So I was the only other full-time Protestant chaplain in Quebec, so that was more humbling. but I wonder at times, if David did not have that incredible dream and vision, how that would have affected my own life and my own career. So there's a link that I feel very connected with David, and what a man, eh? What a dream he had, and the vision and the courage to pursue it. I want to talk tonight about how important it is, and I'm talking from a spiritual perspective in a sense, because it's the Church Council for Justice and Correction. That the fundamental mission of the church is to do justice. But what kind of justice? Cain said, my punishment is too hard to bear. I'm going to be like a restless wanderer. And if anybody sees me, they're going to kill me. And God said, no, not so. Not so. If anybody kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times. If anybody killed Cain, God said, he will suffer vengeance 7 times. Ada and Zillah, listen to me. The wives of Lamech, hear my voice. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, Lamech will be avenged 77 times. 77 times. In the Hebrew Bible, there are 600 passages of extreme violence where God seems to encourage people to take vengeance. There are 1,000 verses where God's violent actions are described in quite details. There are 100 passages where God explicitly orders people to go and kill others with no apparent reason. Vengeance, says one of my friends, Nancy Reeve, vengeance is the most seductive drug we have. Vengeance is the most seductive drug we have. Religiously inspired violence is even more seductive and destructive. Vengeance is the most seductive drug we have. And then, in the midst of a chaotic world, in the midst of where punitive attitude seems to be on the front, in the midst of seeking to forget our past heritage and what has given birth to incredible perspective and corrections in Canada, in the midst of all of that, CCJC has the gall and the audacity to affirm CCJC serves as a shining light for restorative practices in justice and correction. I repeat this. CCJC, the mission, the motto, the vision, CCJC serves as a shining light for restorative practices in justice and in corrections. Now, if you're talking about light, you know, the deeper the darkness, that's when you test the quality of your light. The deeper the darkness, that's when you test the quality of your light. Canada is going through some very dark hours right now in the area of justice, especially in the area of criminal justice. So, is the light of the churches, of the faith groups, is the light of the churches, of the faith groups, going to be put to the test and get extinguished, or going to be put to the test and shine brightly? I had never thought in my life, when I retired from the CSC, I had never thought that I would be given the opportunity in post-genocide Rwanda to know if the light of restorative justice could shine. And I stand here after being there 7 times. I stand here to tell you that if you commit to restorative justice and try to understand it and live by it, you know, it can shine in the worst places in the world. It can shine in the worst places in the world. At the end of April, we went, Julie and I were very involved in some reconciliation villages, but we went to a reconciliation village near Ruengiri, in what was known as the red zone. It was known as the red zone because there had been so much shedding of blood in that area. It's not too far from the RD Congo border. We went there and we were received by a group of dancers and singers. Well, you say, what's new about that? You're in Africa, I mean, everybody dances and sings. Well, what's new is that the group of singers and dancers was composed of ex-military, ex-rebels, survivors, and ex-genocide perpetrators, dancing and singing together. Realizing how difficult a commitment it is, though, if you say we're going to get on the path of restoration. I still see the lady standing here, and she looked at the man there, and she said to all of us, "This is the man that took his machetes and cut all my teeth." And you could see, you know, she speaks, she has no teeth, and you could see, he took his machete and he cut all my teeth. And she says, "I find it so hard when I see him in the morning." But she said, if I don't forgive him, if I don't have the courage to go on in a restorative way, we're going to go back to killing each other. We're going to go back to killing each other. So, the light of restorative justice can shine anywhere. Now, I dare say to you, though, and that's my point of view, I dare say to you that CCJC, if you want to be faithful to that mission, it seems to me that you're going to have a double challenge on your hands. If you want to be that shining light for restorative practices in justice and correction. The first challenge that you're going to have to face is that you're going to have to help the churches come to understand that the concept of justice that they carry in their practices, very often in their teaching, is not the true biblical concept of justice. If there is one area where it is the state concept of justice, the Roman concept of justice that has permeated the church totally, instead of the concept of the church of justice as a restorative justice, this is the case in criminal justice. We have been swamped. We have been totally taken over. Now let me speak a little bit more about that. It's certainly that in the Apostolic Constitution we said if somebody commits a wrong, surround him, try to see, try to understand, but also try to make him come back in the community. The Church Fathers said it's the devil that keeps account of everything and wants to remember it forever. God wants to forget it. There's a wonderful verse in Jude, in the little book of Jude, where it says that when Moses died, God sent the Archangel Michael to go and get him, and the devil got there, and there's an apocryphal book called The Assumption of Moses that gives us the picture. They both went there. You get the picture? Moses died. The devil got there, said, he's mine. God said, no. The archangel said, no, he's mine. The devil said, he's mine, he's a murderer. He's a murderer, first-degree murderer. He killed the Egyptian. And the archangel said, no, he's mine, he's a great religious leader. You know, he's been transformed. He has led his people out of slavery. What a beautiful picture. What a beautiful picture of restorative justice. So the Church Fathers, they had it. Augustine, the great Augustine, one of his best friends was murdered. Augustine was a person of great importance. One of his best friends had been murdered. So he feared that people would want revenge. So he wrote to the judge. Probably today it would be seen as, not proper, but he wrote to the judge in 412, he wrote to Judge Marcellinus and he said, by no means do this or permit this to be done. We do not wish the sufferings of the servant of God avenged by the infliction of precisely similar injuries in the way of retaliation. Fulfill, O judge, the duty of an affectionate father. Let your indignation against their crime be tempered by consideration of humanity. Be not provoked by the atrocity of their deeds to gratify the passion of revenge, but rather be moved by the wounds which these deeds have inflicted on their own souls to exercise a desire to heal them. Beginning of the 5th century, restorative justice. But then things started to change. When the Christians became legit, when Constantine and Theodosius the emperor said, you don't have to hide anymore. We're not going to feed you to the lions anymore. Come in the open. I applaud. Constantine said, we're going to abolish crucifixion as a form of capital punishment. And he said, in reverence for Jesus. I applaud. But in the history, every time that the state and the church start dancing, you rub my back, I rub yours, there are many negative effects. And so they started asking the bishop, they started asking the bishop to preside over some of the courts. And little by little, as Bianchi, the great historian of law, said, little by little, what permeated the church was the Roman concept of law to each one is due, and the church had nothing else to say from its biblical roots. And it disappeared. Thomas Aquinas, the great Thomas Aquinas, could say it is very proper. It is very proper to kill the heretics. Because if we kill those who steal physical property, how much more should we kill those who steal intellectual property, the definition of a heretic. Charles Wesley, wonderful man. Anybody who visits prisoners in my book, I say, great. Charles Wesley, very committed. And with James Fletcher also, an Anglican that was considered the Saint Francis of Assisi of the Anglican. They were committed. They wanted social changes. Charles Wesley was going to prison regularly to Newgate. He writes in his journal in 1738, I have gone to see the 9 people that will be executed tomorrow. They're ready. They're ready. The next day he goes and he sees them being hanged at the gallows, and he comes back and he writes in his book, this was the most wonderful day of my life, to see them living in peace to meet their Lord. I'm not against that. But why is it? Why is it that it was the secular press, the Spectator, which raised the question, should these people have been executed when their worst crime was to have stolen silver spoons? So what is it that people like Charles Wesley that I admire were not able to raise those questions? And I say to you, the reason they were not able to raise those questions is that the punishment attitude, the God of punishment that had come and grown in the 11th and 12th century had so permeated the churches that the real questions were not being asked. Why is it today that the evangelical churches in the United States, that are of course pro-life, and I have no problem with that, but why is it that they're also the most in favor of capital punishment? We're talking here about misunderstanding at a very deep level of our spirituality that has bred us, that has fed us, but in the area of justice has also misled us. Misled us. So your first challenge, you're going to be a shining light in the area of justice, of restorative justice. You're going to have to try to help the people, the churches, to come say, we have lost a treasure. You see, if you don't know you've lost a treasure, you don't look for it. When I teach at Queen's, I usually take my ring and I go in the chapel and I let it roll under the seats. And when I come to talk about the lost treasure, oh, I say, gee, I've lost my ring. You know, it's precious. It's in gold. It's a commitment to Judy. You know. So the students, they're all keen. They go and get under the benches and find the ring. Why did they go and try to find it? They knew I had lost a treasure. The churches are not looking for the treasure because they don't know they have lost it. So your first challenge, you're going to try to sensitize the churches and say, we have lost the treasure in the area of justice. Let's find it. Treasure hunt. Let's find it. And it will talk to us. It will talk to us about a God who wants to embrace, about a God of the second chance, about a God who was not afraid to tell people like David, murderer, adulterer, and say, there's a man according to my own heart. There's a man according to my own heart in his transformation, in his restoration. Your second challenge is going to have to invite the churches to get rid of their images of God which don't fit with the life of Jesus Christ. Okay? And I repeat that. You have to invite the churches to examine their images of God. I went to meet with Howard Zare, the grandfather of restorative justice. And I said, Howard, why is it that our churches have become so punitive? Why is it? He said, Pierre, I don't know, but I think of that often myself. And he said, the only thing I can come up with is that it's due to their images of God. I mean, I could quote so many passages. So what is the image of God that makes you tick? What is the image of God that makes our churches? And I ask myself now for a number of years, how am I going to distinguish from all those images of God? And the answer is that, hey, Colossians 1:15 says, Christ is the image of the invisible God. Hebrews 1 says, is the exact representation of God. Well, if he is the exact representation of God, if he is the image of the invisible God, then he becomes the one against whom you're going to see if it matches or not. And when you look at the life of Jesus, what do you see? Radical commitment in terms of justice. Forgive your enemies. Walk the second mile. Give your code. Become involved with people. That's where it counts. Go and learn that I don't want sacrifices. What I want is mercy. What I want is mercy. It's a human heart beating. What I like about Jesus is because we've talked about God's mathematics of vengeance 7 times. Lamech's mathematics of vengeance 77 times. Jesus says in Matthew 18:22, in answer to, how many times should I forgive? 7 times? No, not 7 times. 77 times. He reverses the dynamic of vengeance. He reverses the mathematics of vengeance and of hatred and of destruction, and he replaces it by a dynamic of restoration and of forgiveness. My time is up. CCJC, be a light. Be a light like you've been in the past 40 years in many, many ways. Be that light. Proclaim restorative justice. Help the churches. And I could have said the faith group, because we all have to do our own work in terms of our own sacred scriptures to understand properly. I have a beautiful story there. Maybe I'll finish by that time. I have a beautiful story from one of my Muslim students at Queen. I had spoken about that passage in Jude, you know, like fighting over the... And he came back and he wrote me a nice piece. I won't read it, I'll just tell you this. He came back and he said, gee, it reminded me of one of the sayings of Muhammad, who tells the story. Somebody had killed, a man had killed 99 people. So he went to see a monk and he said, can I be forgiven? The monk said, no, wait, that's way, way beyond God's forgiveness. So he got angry and he killed the monk. So now he had killed 100 people. So then he went to see a holy man. He went to see a holy man and he asked, he said, can I be forgiven? And the holy man said, of course you can be forgiven.
Educated.
You know, God...
It's education. The monk was holy, but his mind was not open. So he went to an educated person.
Yeah, I'll finish the story. You know, he said, yes, of course you can. But he said, I suggest to you that you leave this city and go to a new city. Because in this city, you're only known as a murderer, and everything that you'll see will remind you, of your past life. So go to a new city. So he started walking toward a new city, and at some point, he drops dead. He drops dead. So the angels of punishment and the angels of mercy went, and they started fighting. The angels of punishment said, he's mine, because he has not done one good thing in his life. The angel of mercy said, no, he's mine. He repented. He was on his way to a new life. So God, who watches all of that, sends an angel disguised as a man to mediate. And the mediator suggests, look, we're going to measure where he died. If he's closer to the older city, then the angel of punishment will get him. If he's closer to the new city, the angel of mercy will get him. Well, they measured. He was exactly in the middle. So you know what God did? He made the old city shrink and go backward. And he made the new city go and get closer. This is the kind of God that we need to discover and present to our people. And this is part of the beautiful heritage of the Judeo-Christian. God bless you.